Now let's talk about in-text citations in MLA style. One type of in-text citation you can use is the parenthetical citation. This means using parentheses at the end of the sentence to refer to the works of others in your own text. Again, you'll put the source information at the end of the sentence in parentheses. And these parentheses will always include these two components, the author and the page number. Here's an example of putting the author and page number in parentheses at the end of the sentence. In addition to a parenthetical citation, you can also use a signal phrase as a form of in-text citation. When you introduce the author in your own sentence, that's called a signal phrase. For example, introducing a quote by saying, "Wordsworth stated that." When citing in text, you can also choose between using a direct quote versus a paraphrase. A direct quote means taking word for word a section of the language from an outside source and putting it in quotation marks. Here's an example. Wordsworth stated that romantic poetry was marked by a spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. Then I put a parenthetical for the page number at the end of the sentence. As you can see, if I include the author's last name in my sentence, I don't have to include it in the parentheses. Now, in addition to a direct quote, you could also paraphrase the outside source. For example, you might write, "Wordsworth extensively explored the role of emotion in the creative process," page 263. Paraphrasing is an important part of citation at the college level. It allows us to frame a source according to our own argument, and after all, whatever you're writing will have its own thesis. If a quotation seems like it doesn't relate to the rest of the information in that paragraph, you probably need to further explain the quote in terms of your own main points, and using a paraphrase can help you do that. As you can see, you have several options for in-text citations, but they will always include somewhere the author and the page number. There are some variations to how you can use the author and the page number in your in-text citation. If there isn't a specific person as the author, you can use the name of the organization or the name of the article instead of the author's last name. Here's an example. In addition, if the source doesn't have page numbers, which can often happen on websites and other online sources, you can skip that step and not include a page number at all. If the paragraphs in the source are numbered, you would cite the paragraphs instead, like so. When creating in-text citations for media that has a runtime, such as a movie or podcast, include the range of hours, minutes, and seconds you're referencing, like so. Another complication that can come up while citing is using an indirect source. Using an indirect source means citing a source from within the source that you read. As in, the source you're reading, let's say the author's name is Lily, has cited another source, Petunia, and you would like to cite what Petunia said. But you haven't read Petunia's article, you've only read Lily. That makes Petunia's article an indirect source. In order to cite Petunia properly, you'll need to use a mandatory signal phrase, so you'll have to mention the indirect source author in your own sentence. Petunia argues that high schools are pressured to act as, quote, social service centers, and they don't usually do that well, end quote, quoted in Lily 259. As you can see, in the parentheses, we'll use qtd.in to indicate the source that you actually consulted. This is Lily, the source that we read, qtd.in Lily 259. Then in the works cited page, you'll cite Lily, again, the source that you actually read. Again, here are the different ways that you can cite in text in MLA style. You can use a signal phrase, either with a direct quote or with a paraphrase, or you can use a parenthetical citation, either with a direct quote or a paraphrase. At the college level, you should be using a variety and choosing them wisely. So what can you consider as you decide which type of in-text citation to use? course, you can switch them up for variety. Using a signal phrase can be useful when the author is an important aspect of the information. Direct quotes might be good when the author's phrasing is particularly useful or can't be paraphrased. Direct quotes might also help you when you don't necessarily agree with the point that the author made and therefore don't want to explain the information in your own words. And of course, paraphrasing to highlight information most relevant to your own paper's main point. Don't choose a citation type just to add length to the paper. If you find that your paragraphs seem short, you may need to explain the outside source information more. Also, be careful not to misrepresent the author's point. This might happen by making it seem like the author had a strong focus or opinion on something they only briefly mentioned. Or you might do this by leaving out complexity to the author's claims or making it seem like their point is simpler than what it really was. These can happen accidentally, so keep a lookout for those common mistakes. Click Next in the Canvas module to proceed. You'll practice creating an in-text citation.